Welcome to the Global War Watch Network. India just fired up a reactor that could literally power its future for decades. And today we're going to break down why this is such a huge deal. Hey, if you want to stay on top of major global stories like this one, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. You won't want to miss what's coming up.
That's right. India's Department of Atomic Energy just announced something, well, monumental. Their most advanced nuclear reactor, it's called the Prototype Fast Breeder Reactor, or PFBR for short, just hit a massive milestone. Even Prime Minister Narendra Modi called it a landmark moment.
And you know, that's really the heart of the matter. This wasn't just about flipping a switch on another power plant. We're talking about the culmination of decades of homegrown research and engineering.
Absolutely. It's a massive step in a super long-term strategy all about energy independence. So, okay, let's get into it. What exactly happened and why should you care?
All right, so on April 6th at 8:25 p.m., something pretty historic happened at the Kalpakkam reactor in Tamil Nadu. It achieved what everyone in the nuclear world calls criticality. And really, that's the essential first step for any reactor. It's the moment it truly comes to life. Okay, but let's be real. That term, criticality, sounds a little intense. What does it actually mean in this context? Okay, a great way to think about it is like starting a campfire. You know how you have to get the kindling going just right so the heat it produces is enough to keep the fire burning all on its own? You don't have to keep holding a match to it? Well, in a reactor, criticality is exactly that moment. It's when the fission of one atom releases neutrons that then cause other atoms to split. And when that chain reaction becomes perfectly balanced, not speeding up, not dying down, the reactor is critical. It's self-sustaining.
And you have to understand, that achievement is a huge deal on the world stage. This is way more than just a national milestone. Once this reactor gets fully operational, India is joining a very exclusive club. I mean, this technology is so incredibly complex that right now, only Russia operates a similar commercial-scale reactor. This puts India right at the cutting edge of advanced nuclear technology.
So that just begs the question, right? Why? Why would you pour decades of work and untold resources into something this complex?
Well, the answer really comes down to the unique energy challenges that India is facing.
I mean, think about it. You've got one of the fastest-growing major economies in the world, which means a skyrocketing demand for energy. But at the same time, India has this really ambitious goal to hit net zero emissions by 2070. And to pull that off, you need just insane amounts of clean, reliable, around-the-clock power. But here's the kicker. When it came to nuclear, India had a very specific resource problem. Yeah, see, India's own domestic supply of uranium, that's the fuel for most conventional nuclear reactors, it's pretty limited. But what it has in spades is thorium. We're talking some of the largest reserves on the planet. But here's the catch. You can't just shovel thorium into a reactor and call it a day. It doesn't work like that. You need a very special kind of reactor to convert it into usable fuel first. And that single strategic problem basically shaped India's entire nuclear program from the very beginning.
Exactly. And that resource gap, that's the key to this entire story. India needed a way to bridge the gap between the little uranium they have and the mountains of thorium they're sitting on. And the answer was the fast breeder reactor, a machine that, and this sounds crazy, actually creates more fuel than it burns.
Wait, hold on. It creates more fuel than it uses? That sounds like something out of science fiction. How on earth is that even possible?
I know, it sounds like it defies physics, but it's very real. See, a normal reactor just burns through its fuel. But a fast breeder reactor, it uses these super high energy, or fast, neutrons to turn stuff that isn't fuel into stuff that is.
So let me break down how this breeding magic actually works. You start with a core made of recycled plutonium fuel. As that fuel splits apart, fission, it shoots out these high-energy, fast neutrons. Now, these neutrons fly out and smack into a surrounding blanket of what's called fertile uranium-238. Now that stuff, uranium-238, you can't use it as fuel by itself. But when it gets hit by one of these fast neutrons, it transmutes. It literally changes into brand new, usable fuel, plutonium-239. It is literally turning a non-fuel into a fuel.
So we're not talking about a small little improvement here. This is a potential 60-fold, that's 60, increase in the amount of energy you can squeeze out of the original uranium. That is a complete game changer for fuel efficiency.
A total game changer for sure. But, to make something like that a reality, you need some seriously advanced tech.
Right. Because as you said, the key to the whole breeding thing is that those neutrons have to stay fast. And the problem is, The water that's used as a coolant in most reactors, well, it actually slows them down.
which would stop the breeding process dead in its tracks. So the engineers in India had to figure out how to use a much more exotic coolant.
They use liquid sodium. Yeah, a metal that's actually liquid at the insane temperatures inside the reactor. It's an amazing heat conductor, but the really critical part is that it doesn't slow down the neutrons. It lets them stay fast so they can do their breeding job. Of course, when you're dealing with 1,750 tons of super reactive liquid metal, safety has to be, well, everything.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like a massive engineering challenge. So how in the world did they make it safe? Okay, so this is where the design gets really, really smart. It's filled with what are called passive safety features. These are systems that work based on the laws of physics, not on some operator pushing a button or a computer running code. For example, if the reactor starts to get too hot, the physics of the reaction itself make it automatically slow down. And that giant pool of sodium we mentioned, it acts like a massive heat sink, just soaking up all the decay heat for hours and hours, even if you had a complete power blackout.
That is just incredible engineering. But like we've been saying, this isn't just some cool science project. This technology is woven directly into India's national strategy, its whole goal of self-reliance. Oh, absolutely. The fact that this was a completely homegrown project is a massive point of national pride in India. I mean, from the first design blueprint to the final construction, it was all done by them, indigenously. It's really a cornerstone of what they call the Atmanirbhar Bharat, or Self-Reliant India initiative. It proves they've mastered the entire, incredibly complex nuclear fuel cycle on their own.
And the payoff for achieving that kind of self-reliance has to be enormous, right?
It is absolutely huge. First, you get a massive source of low-carbon power, which you desperately need for decarbonization. Second, it's what's called a baseload power source. That means it runs 24/7 no matter what. That is so critical for keeping the grid stable when you're adding more on and off sources like solar and wind. And finally, because it's recycling materials, it drastically reduces the amount and the long-term danger of nuclear waste.
So, this sounds like it's the ultimate goal for India's nuclear program. But what's really wild is that this fast breeder reactor, it isn't the final goal. It's actually the critical middle step in a much, much bigger three-stage plan that was dreamed up decades ago.
That's exactly right. This grand strategy, which was the vision of Dr. Homi Bhabha, goes like this. Stage 1, you use your conventional reactors to burn natural uranium, and they produce plutonium as a byproduct. Stage 2, which is what's starting right now, is you take that plutonium and use it in these fast breeders to make power and breed even more fuel. And all of that is to get to Stage 3, using the fuel you made in Stage 2 to power a whole new fleet of advanced reactors that can finally run on all that thorium.
So that makes this fast breeder reactor the absolute linchpin of the entire strategy. It's the vital bridge, the one piece of tech that connects their uranium-fueled present to their thorium-powered future. And it could unlock a domestic energy source that powers the country for literally centuries.
Exactly. Now look, there's still a lot of testing to do before this thing is running at full commercial power. But reaching criticality, that's the big one. That's the decisive moment. It proves the core technology actually works.
And it proves that India has mastered one of the most complex energy technologies on the entire planet, all in the name of energy security and a low-carbon future. It really leaves us all with a pretty powerful question to think about.
All right, that's all the time we have for this one. Thanks so much for joining us. If you learned something today, do us a huge favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the Global War Watch Network. So what do you think about this kind of technology? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. We'll see you in the next